Courage and honor, cousin.
Into the fires of battle, unto the anvil of war.
Hello, and welcome to Warhammer 40k's Grim History from Beyond. I'm Zeckthar,
I'm Yuksen.
and we are the chroniclers of all that was, and all that will be in the 41st millennium. We've seen the rise and fall of many empires, and today we'll be discussing the most recent events of the Imperium, the Indomitus Crusade.
Indeed, but this crusade is so large and so important, we're going to cover it for the next couple of months. But this week we figured we should probably start back at the beginning. In fact, I figured you should start back before the beginning, Zeckthar. You know, kind of recap all the stuff we have done leading up to this point.
That is a fantastic idea, Yuksen. But where should I start?
Why? Where it all began, of course. The fall of Cadia.
Wow. That far back, huh? I don't think we really have time for all of that.
Of course we do. Just make it a brief recap. Not one of those long-winded effigies you're so fond of.
Hey.
Just remember, folks, if you want to get a more in-depth view on all the subjects Zeckthar will be going over on his brief overview, we have actually covered them.
Yep, indeed. And once I'm done, Yuksen will let you know how to look them up. But getting on with the Vox. Cadia was no more, split asunder by the foul workings of chaos and the dreaded war master Ezekiel Abaddon.
Great. Here we go.
The red orb of Cadia was barely a pinprick of light against the void. Scarce a solar day had passed, and it was already succumbing to the Eye of Terror's baleful influence. It would make a fine demon world, Abaddon decided, if the tectonic forces he had let loose did not see it destroyed first. It mattered little either way. After 10 millennia of preparation, the Crimson Path was now ready for him to tread. The only question was whether it would bring him to Terra before it split the galaxy asunder. Again, it mattered little either way. Yet there was a flaw in his plan, a single fickle strand of fate that threatened everything Abaddon had been dreaming of for some 10,000 years. And that was to be later known in the records of the Imperium as the Celestine Crusade. Yes, a noble group of elite heroes! And dare I say a group of curmudgeons that barely got along. Escaped the doomed planet of Cadia, and with the help of a couple Eldari, managed to make it to Macraw, the home of the Ultramarines and their chapter master, Marnius Calgar, or Old Marnie Cal for short. Now Abaddon was told by his wizards and soothsayers that whatever happened, no matter what, the Celestine Crusade could not reach Macraw. So, after losing them right after the destruction of Cadia, figured the best way to stop them from getting to Macraw was to simply take Macraw. And so he sent his Black Legion to secure the home of the Ultramarines, who were having none of it. The fighting was vicious, the bloodshed was brutal, and in the end, the battle for Macraw was won because the Celestine Crusade was able to get to the shrine of Rebute Guilliman and reawaken him at the last second. With the living Primarch on their side, the Ultramarine defenders made swift work of the Black Legion, and Macraw was saved. After solidifying Macraw and many of the 500 worlds of Ultramar, Guilliman figured the next step was to head to Holy Terra herself, post haste, and claim rule over the Imperium.
And boy, did they need it.
Yeah, so at this point anyways, so while this was all taking place over in the Ultima Segmentum, in the Segmentum Solar, everything was going haywire because the Eye of Terra had started to split asunder and the Great Rift was starting to take place.
Yeah.
So, which my brother will talk about here momentarily. But
So bad that Terra literally cults randomly popped up on Terra. And changed churches into cult shrines.
Anywho, after gathering a new army to accompany him called the Terran Crusade, which included much of the Celestine Crusade, along with a bunch of Grey Knights and Ultramarines, headed off to Terra. The road to Terra was neither swift nor easy, though, thanks to his brother Magnus the Red. You see, when Guilliman awoke, his cry of rebirth echoed throughout the war, and 3 of his brothers took quiet notice of the awakening of their long-lost brother. The first was Fulgrim, his older brother, whose plan to kill Guilliman was not fully formed, or he was simply too bored with the thought of killing his brother. One could never truly know what the followers of Sinesh are thinking. Mortarion, Plague Lord and Demon Primarch of the Death Guard, cackled on his rotting throne, as he and the other voices in his head mused on how to kill their elder brother. But the brother that took immediate action was the Cyclopean monster himself, Magnus the Red, who planned a trap for Guilliman as he traveled near the Maelstrom and was captured by Carol's Fateweaver, prophet of Zinch. Trapped in near death, the Terran Crusade and Guilliman prepared for the worst, but were saved by a group of Harlequins and a dark angel calling himself Cypher.
I am Alfarius.
Shh! that is a lie.
Uh-huh.
Anywho, after they are broken out of prison, they follow the Harlequins through the webway to Holy Terra, but Guilliman realizes this has been Magnus' plan all along, and his traitorous brother is hoping he opens the door that Magnus accidentally opened almost 10,000 years prior to warn the Emperor of Horus's treachery. So instead of going to Terra, Guilliman has the Harlequins drop him off on the dark side of Luna, Holy Terra's only moon. Magnus is one step ahead as always though, and is waiting for him. It is on the dark side of the moon that the Avenging Sun and the Crimson King do battle, and at this moment, the fate of humanity stands on a knife's edge. If Guilliman is cast down, then chaos will be victorious, and humanity is doomed. If Guilliman wins, there is slight hope for the Imperium. Now, needless to say, Magnus is cast back into the warp, and the Custodes escort Guilliman to his father, who remains as a husk on the Golden Throne. Which brings us up to what we'll be talking about today. Now, before my brother carries on, if you want more details on all the stuff I just went through, they're on our podcast, as well as our YouTube channel, and a playlist link linked in the comments box. But before we carry on, is there anything that stands out that I didn't cover in this overview that we should probably talk about? Hey, Yuksen?
Well, first, the Great Rift. You know,
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Explain that
how
real
it
quick.
split it, the Imperium, like in two. And the side that Terra's on is the Imperial Sanctus. Of course, it's Sanctus. Sanctimonious Sanctus. And then the other half is the Imperial Nihilus, which is on the other side of the Great Rift.
Mhm.
It's the side where currently, I believe, as far as we're aware of, the Lion is. But who knows, because he does his whole walk thing through the forest.
Well, at this point, anyways, the Imperium Nihilus, the Lord Regent of the Imperium Nihilus is
Dante, right?
Lord Luis Dante of the Blood Angels. But we will get to that in later episodes, because part of that, anyways, happens to do with the Indomitus Crusade. But is there anything else that I kind of missed out here that you thought, anyways, was kind of important that we should probably ding in here real quick? And I think I kind of covered everything, but...
Yeah, you did pretty much cover it. Though he did do Cypher dirty, but that's the second one.
Okay, yeah. So when they do get to the Golden Throne, one of the things, anyways, is payment for Cypher to help out is that he would be able to meet with the Emperor. And when they got to the Golden Throne, he had the custodian seize Cypher and then throw him into the dungeon, and then Cypher disappeared. So,
Yeah.
as Cypher's known to do. Cypher's an interesting character. We talk about him too a couple of times, actually. But all right, well, if you got nothing else, anyways, that we need to talk about, anyways, that was part of that recap, what's next on the agenda today, Yuksen?
Well, starting off from, once again, him having his conversation with the Emperor. Nobody knows what was said between them, but when the Primarch emerged from the inner palace, he declared that he was taking up the mantles of the Lord Commander of the Imperium, and Imperial Regent once more. Now, as the first among equals among the High Lords of Terra, just as he had been after the Horus Heresy, Guilliman promised the people of the galaxy that he would assemble the greatest fleet and armies seen since the Great Crusade, take the fight to chaos, and revive the Emperor's lost dream of a better future for humanity. After this declaration, Guilliman began to set his plans in motion, consisting mainly of two thoughts. The first, gather the forces of the Imperium for a mighty and noble quest, one which today is known as the Indomitus Crusade. The second train of thought was to consolidate his political power, which would take just as much planning, if not more. Not since the War Master Horse's fleet darkened the heavens above Terra had the Imperium known such a time of crisis as it did in the days following the opening of the Great Rift. Half of the Emperor's realm was gone, banished beyond a veil of nightmares, and, for all those on the throne world knew, annihilated at a stroke. Those worlds in the newly designated Imperial Sanctus on the Terran side of the Great Rift fared little better. Distress calls, desperate screams, and grim last transmissions all but drowned the minds of Terra's astropaths and drove many mad. There was not a world, it seemed, that was not beset by war. Everywhere the High Lords of Terra turned their gaze, the armies and fleets of the Imperium were scattered, besieged, and outnumbered. Untold trillions of Imperial citizens died with every solar day that passed. Worlds winked out like snuffed candle flames from the far reaches of the Segmentum Pacificus to the storm-racked tumult of the Kergon sector. Time was desperately of the essence. Being a clever fellow, Guilliman knew that gathering his political power would have to go first, before mustering his martial forces. Even now, the rats within the High Lords of Terra began their scheming. And even though Guilliman desperately wanted to take the fight to the enemy, he needed to wait. Yet, that did not keep the avenging sun from starting his plans of gathering his forces into a huge crusade. Oh no, he did this as well, with much gusto. He would forge not mere armies, nor even crusades in the traditional imperial sense, but rather immense fleets of vengeance and reconquest that dwarfed all that had come before them. With these tools at his disposal, Guilliman would fight back against the lackeys of the Dark Gods. And speaking of the Dark Gods, Khorne wanted to deal with the upstart Primarch before he could really get rolling. As the first warp storms of the Noctis Aeterna broke over Holy Terra in the wake of the Great Rift spurt, cutting off the Imperium from the beacon of the Emperor's Astronomicon, its pollution-filled skies turned a roiling crimson. The Chaos God Khorne, heedless of the plans of his brother gods, and hungry to prove his own superiority, struck at Terra. Chaos cultists and their maddened throngs that had taken over swaths of Terra's hive cities conducted mass sacrifices of guardsmen, offering their hearts to the blood god. Warp storms opened over Terra's skies, from which poured 88 demonic cohorts. The demonic horde immediately moved on the Imperial Palace, assaulting the Lion's Gate. The defenses of the palace were still formidable, despite their 10,000 years of inactivity. Yet these alone could not halt the demonic tide. The Captain General Trajan Valoris led close to 4,000 of the Adeptus Custos into the battle alongside a contingent of Grey Knights. More than half of their number were killed by the demons. The Lion's Gate would have likely fallen had it not been for the newly resurrected Robuta Guilliman. Guilliman led a counterattack of Primaris Space Marines, Standard Space Marine, Custos, and Sisters of Silence from Luna that broke the chaos advance before it could reach the Eternity Gate. Khorne was so enraged when he heard of his failure that the 8 bloodthirsters that led the assault were completely obliterated. While the Battle of Lionsgate was clear Imperial victory, it nonetheless shook the High Lords, who realized that Terra could no longer be considered unassailable. Many Imperial leaders, Guilliman included, believed that the sudden and reckless chaos assault on Terra was a ploy to keep the attention of the Imperial leadership on their throne world in order to prevent the coming of the subsequent Indomitus Crusade. And so, Guilliman set out his plans to the High Lords with what could best be described as forceful determination, having set a dozen schemes and more in motion before he even secured their agreement. The moment astropathic communication could be re-established with the wider Sol system, the Primarch sent missives winging out to Mars, Titan, Jupiter, and dozens of other worlds and deep space fortifications besides. He spoke to Magos Belisarius Cawl, impressing upon his ancient ally the importance of speed in undertaking the ultimate founding. He secured every spacefaring asset he could lay his hands on, and began the process of gathering one flotilla after another in deep space beyond Neptune. Guilliman went in person to beseech the Abbess Sanctorum of the Adeptus Sororitas and the Fabricator General of Mars for aid in his undertaking. Few know what promises or assurances Guilliman made to these two influential figures, but for whatever unknown price he secured their cooperation.
I see. Not only is he gathering his allies, he is securing his political power as well.
Indeed. If Terra was to be his fortress and Sol his mustering ground, the Primarch could not afford to risk instability or insurrection endangering his efforts. He made overtures to the Inquisition, the Adeptus Custodes, the Adeptus Arbites, the Ecclesiarchy, and even the Officio Assassinorum to aid him. So began a time of brutal purges throughout Terra's sprawling macro-hive cities that saw hundreds of petty cults uprooted and millions of alleged heretics, mutants, and recidivists burned alive in the streets. Few were safe from this campaign of terror, which soon became known as the Primarch's Scourge, and saw a shocking number of corrupt officials, dilettante cult magisters, and self-interested high acolytes culled from Terran high society. 4 High Lords of Terra were removed. These were Master of the Administrative Urthu Hematalian, Petronoval Envoy Ula Lama, Speaker for the Chartist Captains Kanya Damba, and Ecclesiarch Balto Slist.
He took out the Ecclesiarch on his first day? That's pretty awesome.
Well,
Sorry. Maybe his first week. Still.
A 5th
There
High
you go,
Lord.
Guilliman.
Yeah.
Sorry.
High Lord.
Go ahead.
A 5th High Lord, Master of the Astronomicon, Leops Franck, was killed during the chaos of the Noctis Aeterna and replaced by Guilliman's own choice. So, for those who don't know, the Noctis Aeterna is basically all the chaos that happened after the Great Rip on Terra. Basically.
Right. Well, yeah, and if I recall right anyways, wasn't he also, assassinated? It was during that whole thing anyways where a bunch of the High Lords tried to usurp Guilliman, and they used the Minotaurs for it. We talked about it when we talked about the Custodes, because the Custodes ended up finding out about it and foiling the plans, along with the Officio Assassinorum. It was really convoluted, and I don't know why we're bringing it up now, because, quite frankly, anyways, I didn't want to bring it up because it was really convoluted, but it took place. And a lot of people died. You remember
All
any
you
of this?
really need to know is it caused 33 days of mass mayhem, chaos, and death.
There you go. Cool.
That's all you actually need to know. Consider it. On Terra.
Right. On Terra.
Anyways, Horan Shess, the notoriously arrogant and conservative consul preeminence of the Navigator houses, was publicly flogged to the widespread shock of all. He had attempted to hold the Crusade muster to ransom by withholding the aid of the guild's pending promises of richly preferential treatment from the High Lords. But he soon found that Guilliman's patience for such maneuvering was nil.
This sounds vaguely familiar. If I recall right anyways, when we were talking about, what was it? We were talking about, the Grey Knights. That's why I was remembering, because I was just doing those videos. The first Grey Knight, Janus.
Yeah.
Remember the reason why they had that huge problem, the White Scars getting back to Terra, was because that Navigator was trying to sabotage them because he didn't want the webway to take place. Because then they'd be out of a job. This guy sounds
Right.
vaguely familiar. This is like, I'm doing this for job security.
No, this goes beyond that, though. This goes to, instead of, I don't want to lose my job, this is, I want even more money than I'm already getting, which is a massive amount of money.
Yeah. And also, anyways, for those of you, anyways, I'm sorry I kind of brought up that whole, anyways, assassination thing. But if you want more details on that, feel free to look up. I just looked this up, anyways. The Heroes of the Legendary Custodes, 40k lore. We actually cover that, and it's a tag team between, I can't remember for the life of me, the Custode and a Sister of Silence. And they kind of figure out, anyways, what takes place. If you remember that at all, Yuksen.
I just remember it ended with, and behold, I am the master of the Officio Assassinorum.
Very much I am the spy. Really? This is dumb.
Everybody else dies except for me.
Yeah. But, okay, just out of curiosity before we move on, how many of these people, anyways, that were caught up in this Primarch Scourge do you think really were actually Chaos Cultists and Mutants?
I have no idea.
To me, anyways, this seems very much more of and it has happened throughout Terran 42's history. It's normally not a nice thing that takes place, but it's something, anyways, where it's a leader that wants to start, controlling all of their power and trying to get rid of people, anyways, that are going to be problems for them. Normally go on these purges, or as in this case, anyways, the Primarch Scourge. And a lot of times people are put to death just simply, anyways, because they need to be out of the way. Now, we find whatever excuse we need, because a lot of times, anyways, these guys really aren't doing anything wrong. It's just they might pose a hurdle or a problem, anyways, for the leader that is up and coming. Like, for instance, Rabute Guilliman here. So I could very well see, anyways, some of these people, anyways, these senators and whatnot, it was, you're accused of being a mutant. I'm not a mutant. Oh. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. You're double jointed in your elbow. That's not mutation. Yes, it is. Kill him. Ah! Or, he's a heretic. I saw you at a birthmark, anyways, shaped like, the sign of corn or whatever, kind of thing. I'm sure, anyways, there was a lot of these just like random excuses of like, this is a guy that we need to put to death because he's a heretic or a mutant or an alien lover or something along those lines, even though they probably weren't, but it benefited Guilliman.
Right.
I know this kind of puts Guilliman in a pretty terrible light, but like I said, this isn't something that's new.
I would find it more likely that he said, okay, these are the peoples that I want out of the way, and he talks to the Inquisition about it, and the Inquisition just goes, okay, we got this.
And then, I could see that too. He's
we
like,
have no power here.
I can also see, anyways, him going, okay, this is the list of people, and having a very finite and important list, anyways, of people that he needs to get rid of. He gives it to the Inquisition. They go, we got this. And then they go way overboard and kill 50 times as many people as that was on the list. Well, Guilliman's just sitting in the back, just shaking his head, going, why do I trust them? Why do I trust them?
Well, they got the job done.
Never give him a list. Never, ever give him a list again. Never. I should know this. I've been living with Greyfax for a while on a ship. I know how terrible these people are. Anyways, I mean, this makes sense though, what I'm saying, right? This is very much, anyways, a garnering and trying to gather up his power and his political agendas and making sure that people also know, anyways, you're either with me or we're going to kill you.
Well, or flog you, apparently.
This guy, anyways, he flogged, which, quite frankly, anyways, I'm kind of surprised he didn't kill. It probably is because he's a navigator. Navigators have always been treated a little nicer than everybody else. Because they're the ones that take your ship through the warp. Not only that, but when navigators go bad, they really go bad. I mean, when I did all those voxes on the what was it? It's the war that's taking place in the Ultima Segmentum in the southern quadrants of it. It's
Jericho Reach.
Yeah, and there is a little maelstrom thing, anyways, that is in that sector of space. And there's a navigator that lives there that is now an anti-navigator, or whatever they're called, a chaos navigator. And he is He's like the worst. I mean, we've talked about Erebus as being bad. Quite frankly, Erebus is the worst because he affected so many more people. But if you're talking about like what they do on a daily basis and you put them next to each other, this guy could give Erebus a run for his money. He is terrible.
Well, when you are technically... Oh, by the way, navigators are mutants, by the way, for those who don't know. They are mutants.
Suffering off
Specifically
the
with a
heresy.
third eye.
The mutant. What about the navigators? You're fine. We'll let you live. No, the alien. They look like aliens too. Shut up.
They have a third eye on their head.
Anyways, we should probably get back on track. So after he consolidates his power, then while he's doing this, how's the crusade going?
Well, within solar weeks of ratification of Guilliman's plans by the High Lords, several all-out wars were raging through the Terran underhives as xenophile cults and chaos worshippers fought desperately for their survival. Collateral damage spiraled, voices of dissent murmured wherever they did not believe they could be heard. Yet as a result of the Scourge, the Primarch's muster went uninterrupted by sabotage, sedition, or politicking, at least in the main. For Guilliman himself, the most troubling aspect of the muster was the process of triage he was required to enact throughout the Segmentum Solar. The entire principle of the Indomitus Crusade required the massing of immense military forces in and around the Sol system and its neighboring star clusters. By this point, the Primarch had expressed a desire to gather as many as 10 such almighty assemblages. These fleets would muster one by one as sufficient forces became available before striking out on predetermined routes across the Emperor's realm. A great part of the material and manpower required for the Indomitus Crusade was slated to come from Mars, in the form of both the Ultima founding Primaris space brains, and the Red Planet's own vast strength of Skitarii, Night and Titan manifolds, Ordinatus spore engines, and the like. More would be drawn from the Order of the Ebon Chalice, and, to a lesser extent, the Order of Our Martyred Lady, from the ranks of the Adeptus Custodes and the Inquisition, and from the mighty warships of the magnificent Battlefleet Solar. However, substantial martial strength was also to be drawn from the systems within Terran's wider orbit, and it was these embattled realms that Guilliman was forced to assess with a cold and logical eye. Some worlds, it was clear, stood a fighting chance of survival on their own account, where reports spoke of determined warriors and blade-swift warships holding the line, of Xenos and heretic foes being pushed back and held at bay. There the Primarch allowed the armies of the Imperium to fight on. For every last star system that was fighting back against the encroaching darkness, however, there were many more whose defenders were on the verge of being overwhelmed and would never hold out without aid. It was these forces that Guilliman ordered to retreat, often leaving just enough of a rearguard behind to ensure that their withdrawal could be achieved without substantial further losses. Thousands of regiments of Astra Militarum and battle-damaged Imperial Navy warships fled from war zones that they had bled and suffered to protect. Some refused their orders, fighting to the last against the terrors that beset their worlds. Guilliman could speak no word of censure against them, yet equally he did not relent, for he understood, as they could not, how vital these recalled forces would be to the Indomitus Crusade as a whole. Worlds could be retaken, territory could be reclaimed and repopulated as the Crusade fleets drove outward into the stars, but to squander the Imperium's armies in the hopeless defense of too many battlefronts at once would achieve little but to see the Emperor's realm bled to death. So, Guilliman asserted, so he told himself time and again, as wounded and resentful armies slowly made their way back to the Sol system and outlying systems were overrun in their wake. It was a tragedy, but a necessary one. All would be paid back in blood when the Indomitus Crusade began. Through all the tragedy, the suffering, and the strife, the Indomitus Crusade took shape. Guilliman's logistical genius and unfaltering focus were turned to the codification and rapid assignment of viable warp corridors and mustering points, and to absorbing, processing, and resolving a flood of challenges, from resupply and ship repair to morale and provision and Medicaid personnel. Despite the continued churning of the warp that delayed or devoured some incoming warships, the Crusade's forces gathered far faster than any but the Primarch himself would have believed possible. Mandeville points around the perimeter of the Sol system, the Gehenna system, and several others flashed with eldritch light again and again as flotillas of spacecraft tore their way from warp space to join the muster. So great did the empiric disturbance of such constant translation become that the Oro Malleus raised urgent concerns of empiric destabilization and possible warp breaches aboard the watch stations that guard Sol's deep space border. Out-system staging areas were established in the void. Squads of Grey Knights were deployed to the watch stations as naval anchorages. However, the pace of the muster was not permitted to slow. Brute Guilliman's genius showed again as manpower and material continued to flood into the Sol system and its surroundings. For every warship that reached the muster, Guilliman had commanded multiple supply barges, fueling tenders, agri-haulers, and Adeptus Mechanicus fabricator barges to do likewise.
Logistics to the rescue! Sorry. Okay, carry on.
Bypassing the established imperial bureaucracy entirely, Guilliman created his own elite cadre of facilitators, whose role was to ensure proper supply and marshalling of every single crusade ship and soldier. Micromanagers to the rescue!
I was gonna say, other warlords anyways have around them a bodyguard of like elite fighters. Guilliman, we have project managers.
Yes, exactly. Project managers.
Go ahead.
In the name of the Officio Logisticera, known throughout the fleets as Guilliman's Hand, this body was millions of souls strong. Its members drawn from the best that Terra's Administratum and Departamento Munitorum bureaucracies had to offer. And still, it was barely equal to the task. Perhaps the Logisticero would have failed were it not for the ironclad guidelines Guilliman had laid down for the disposition of the Crusade fleets. The Indomitus Crusade would not be one vast fleet plowing across the stars like some crude battering ram. Rather, Roberto Guilliman's vision called for an initial mustering of 10 mighty fleets. These would be known as Fleet Primus, Fleet Secundus, Fleet Tertius, and so on, and each would be ruled over by a supreme officer bestowed the almighty rank of Fleet Master. Each fleet was a unique mixed force comprising elements of various imperial military factions in a balance dictated by Guilliman and intended to operate in a different fashion and to different grand strategic ends. The fleets varied tremendously in size and composition. Still, even the smallest numbered hundreds of sleek warships and twice that number of logistical supply craft, all gathered to facilitate the deployment of countless billions of fighting men and women. There's another duty that Guilliman had in mind for his task forces, and it was a crucial one. Even as the Grand Muster of the Crusade continued, he had the Fleet Masters select elite task forces from amongst the gathering ranks of their assigned warriors. Each of these task forces was joined by a complement of Sisters of Silence, at least one squad of Adeptus Custodes, and a conclave of Magos biologists, who brought with them sealed and warded canisters and many strange arcane-looking machines. The Sisters of Silence were there to drive back the warp storms that plagued real space in the wake of the Great Rift's birth, and aid the void ships of their task forces in traversing the Imperium swiftly and comparatively safely. the Adeptus Custodes were envoys of Guilliman himself, speaking with the authority of both Primarch and Emperor to ensure the task forces met with no political resistance from any imperial body, including the Adeptus Astartes. Finally, the Adeptus Mechanicus Tech Priests were there to deliver that which they brought with them, the gene seed and technologies required for their assigned Space Marine chapters to embrace Arc Magos Dominus Belisarius Cawl's Primaris Space Marine miracle, often accompanied by awakened Primaris battle brothers of the Ultima Foundry, destined to join the ranks of their target chapters. These task forces sped out into the darkness, even as the Crusade fleets continued to muster in their wake. They would be known as torchbearers to the beleaguered Imperium, and they would bring the blessings of the Primaris Space Marines to the most far-flung, the most embattled, and, in a few rare cases, the most recalcitrant or dangerous chapters. Now, not from corruption, mind you, but through all this ridiculous paperwork this mustering caused.
Really? I'm sure there was a lot of people anyways that had headaches after this, but who do you have in particular?
That would be one Lord Commander Solar Arcadian Leontis.
Ah, yes. I remember him. You talked about him when we discussed some of the leaders of the Ostra Militarum, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And if I recall right, when we talked about him then, you mentioned that Guilliman put quite a strain on him. With one of the many reasons was, quite frankly, he took all of his guys.
Yes.
On this Indomitus Crusade.
Yes, well, that and a little more. Now, for those of you who didn't listen to our conversation on the Astra Militarum, a brief recap. Arcadian Leontis is the supreme commander of all Astra Militarum forces in the Segmentum Solar. Leontis, strangely, is unaugmented, as well as a polyhister, martial tactician, and scholar of war of breathtaking ability. He possesses a formidable intellect and strategic brilliance that has seen him thrive in both martial and political theaters for many solar decades.
I'm going to ask what Leontis' grief is, but real quick also, he's unaugmented? That's actually pretty strange, isn't it?
Yeah. He has been around due to, he has had rejuvenate treatments, fairly expensive ones. So he's been able to, he's aged quite well.
There you go. Okay. But, all right. But
he's able to stay in peak condition.
Right.
He keeps up exercising and a healthy diet. He's
the Tom Brady of the Segmentum Solar. We get it.
He's not like the what you think of normally when it comes to Admiral. I'm a 100-pound overweight guy with a big mustache and a cigar.
That's normally what I don't think of a general, but all right.
Well,
the only general I think of with a cigar anyways would be what's his face? Ursakar E. Creed. And I don't think there was an ounce of fat on his body. He was just big. He was bear-like. But anyways,
I should say
back to
political general.
What did Guilliman do anyways that caused Leontis such grief?
Well, first off, on top of the billions of Imperial soldiers that were lost to the warp storms, combat attrition, or calamities, the Militarum Regimentos was depleted further by the demands of course, the Indomitus Crusade.
Right, so he took off his guys.
Second, Guilliman's new directives have in fact changed predetermined successful methods for political maneuvering, causing him to rewrite his playbook, so to speak. Also, probably some of the people that he was able to get through was people that were now deceased.
Darn, all the people that I had bribed anyway so I could get the stuff that I needed, you killed them all. Now I have to start back from square one.
I would be able to get that same stuff for you.
Now where's my scotch?
I gotta work on some Newport saps.
Yeah. Okay.
Mind you, he does work within constructs of what the directives are.
Well, is that it? Is that his only problems?
lastly, which we will not talk about this week, but after the Indomitus Crusade soldiers off, the Hive Fleet Leviathan shows up at the Soul Segmentum, and he has to deal with it.
Oh no!
Indeed.
It
But
sounds
enough
like
about him.
lunchtime. The Tyranids. He's got nobody there.
You'd think that would steer him to somewhere else. You know, them being a Hungary race, but no.
Well, no. All that's left, anyways, in the Soul Segmentum, anyways, is a bunch of people without guns. So, potluck. Well, before we talk about the launch of the Indomitus Crusade, we do have to talk about the Primaris project and its very important founder, one Magos Belisarius Cawl.
Very unfortunately, yes. Go ahead, talk about the McGuffin Cawl.
Quite right, Yuksen. Now, Magos Indomitus Belisarius Cawl has been alive since the time of the Horus Heresy, though how he managed to maintain his life over more than 10,000 Terran years is unknown. Even the most advanced rejuvenant and augment systems cannot normally maintain an organic human mind for such a long period. But that's beside the point.
I dare say it's not.
Why not? Shouldn't we
So
just skip over this? He is a MacGuffin, after all.
Well, true, he is a MacGuffin, but that also means that probably he doesn't have much of an organic mind left.
Oh, I think he does. Okay,
Well,
so I have
sorry,
a theory on
I think
this.
he has
Actually,
multiple minds
yes,
in
yes.
his head
I
at this
think that's
point,
helping.
I think.
I think there's a couple things that he's done, anyways, that are helping. But also, yeah, like all MacGuffins, anyways, his story kind of starts in the middle, but it's a little fleshed out. I think, anyways. Actually, no. His story is kind of ironic for a MacGuffin. There is no middle. It's just the beginning and the end. There's nothing in between. But,
It's like, this is what he was like before, then 10,000 years. Now here is again.
yeah. So just there are a couple things, anyways, and I'm going to explain part of it here in a second. But when you said the multiple brains, I'm going to explain that here. But I also think, anyways, that somewhere along the line, he probably ran into some Necron tech that has probably helped him, anyways, long. Because as we know, anyways, the Necron's been around for a really, really long time, been able to survive that way. And he does have, anyways, he does have a Necron head, if I recall right, in his laboratory that everybody just kind of ignores.
Well, I think he was also able to deactivate those parasites that were in Gravex's mind.
Yeah.
Right?
So he does know something about Necron technology, and he talked to Drazine. He didn't seem to have too much of a problem with him, which most people would, especially in the Mechanicum. But anyways, Cawl was born on Mars, created in the birthing facilities of Xanthoptera, controlled by Magos biologist Hamareth, at some point during the early 31st millennium. Like most Martian children, he was a vat-born as opposed to the good old-fashioned way, and at the time of his birth was already physically and mentally a young adolescent. However, unlike most Martian children, he was able to speak normally at the time of his birth, a result of absorbing more fully the data uploaded into all Mechanicum fetuses while he was gestating. Cawl's first confirmed appearance in the Imperial history came during the Horus Heresy, where he was a tech acolyte on the Mechanicum world of Tresselane A4 and the Tresselane system. He was trained under the Magos Domina Hesta Asperata Sigma Sigma, herself a master of the art of soul merging, essentially the digital duplication of another being's mind and psyche, and the ability to merge it with another using cybernetic implants. His greatest friend and companion at this time was his fellow tech priest, Friedrich Autumnship Kuvo. Cawl, the last remaining disciple of this technology, maintained that the Emperor was the Omnicide, which was the theological position of the Orthodox Mechanicum, but disagreed with a great deal of the rest of the Mechanicum's dogma, as he felt the true quest for knowledge was to pursue technology innovation, rather than ritualistically and mindlessly maintain the Imperium's existing technology base. Cawl believed in the superiority of the human form, as the Emperor had taught and refused many of the more visible cybernetic modifications commonly utilized by other tech priests. However, at the same time, the young Cawl secretly performed illegal brain-enhancing surgeries on himself in order to increase his own intelligence. When the Trizolian system was assaulted by traitor forces led by Horus himself, Cawl was betrayed when his mistress, Hester Esperetta Sigma Sigma, defected to the service of the War Master. Cawl was disgusted at the sight of the chaos-corrupted Horus, but feigned submission to the servants of the ruinous powers to survive. Later, during the battle to take control of Tresolian A4, Cawl, alongside Friedrich Adam Ship Kuvo, were able to kill Asperetta Sigma Sigma for her betrayal and escape the Tresolian system, but not before Cawl first merged his own mind with Asperetta Sigma Sigma's own intelligence core and gained her mastery of soul merging and cloning. Cawl and Friedrich successfully fled to the Tresolian system and sought refuge on Terra, where Cawl had been recalled under the pretext of Ezekiel Sadie, the brilliant geneticist, and the second director of the biotechnical division, whose main task was creating and improving the genetic lines of the Legionis Astartes. In truth, Sedine had grown so old that even rejuvenant treatments were no longer enough to keep him alive. Desperate to achieve immortality so that he could continue his work for the Emperor, Sedine simply wanted Cawl's knowledge of cloning and soul merging, in the belief that if his psyche was added to Cawl's mind, his personality would reemerge as the dominant one. To achieve this end, Sedine had his servant, Altrix Herminia, shoot Friedrich. The geneticist promised to restore Cawl's companion to life only if the tech priest agreed to use his soul-merging technology to combine his psyches together with Cawl's own body so that Sedine could live forever. However, after the merger was completed, Sedine's personality within their merged Gestalt consciousness was overwhelmed by Cawl's own. Cawl flew into a panic, calling for a cryo flask to at least save Friedrich's head, all while his only friend died in front of him. Kuvo is now a programmable servant, cloned from Cawl's long-dead companion, and over the millennia, Cawl has created many subsequent iterations of Friedrich that simply dubbed Kuvo, with their following number representing the iteration of the chronological order of creation. Each Kuvo has varying degrees of memory of their past exploits in Cawl's service. All Kuvos so far react with confusion or agitation when the Arch Magos refers to him as Friedrich. They all are aware that they're not the original Friedrich, and do not accept Cawl referring to them as such, in spite of the fact that all of these clones possess a complete set of knowledge of the former Friedrich. Each new clone has their own individuality and clearly understands their individual personality without identifying themselves with the previous clones or Friedrich. Each Kuvo clone remembers the life and death of the original Friedrich Udum Silop Kuvo, as well as subsequent Kuvo copies, or at least those whose engrams were able to be recovered after their demise. From each Kuvo's perspective, they begin their life just after Friedrich's death, typically awaking to Cawl welcoming him back and mostly having the same conversation each time. All the memories of the prior Kuvo's iterations tend to catch up with the newly awoken Kuvo iteration after about half an hour. But getting back to Cawl, upon awakening following the procedure, Cawl relived an old memory of Sunday, when he first met the Emperor of Mankind early in the Unification Wars. When the Emperor first saw Sedine, he addressed the scientist as Belisarius Cawl, rather than by his own name. For with his potent psychic presence, the Emperor had foreseen Sedine's ultimate fate hundreds of standard years in the future. The Emperor explained to the future Cawl in the memory that it would be his responsibility to continue his work, and must continue to do so even on the day that Cawl came to believe that he had betrayed all that the Emperor stood for. The very idea of betraying the Emperor horrified the young Cawl.
Keep this in mind because it comes up later.
Now, after the end of the Horus Heresy, Cawl was charged by Rebute Guilliman, then the First Lord Commander of the Imperium and the new Imperial Regent, to oversee three responsibilities should the Primarch fall. 1. was the construction of the life-sustaining suit of artifice armor known as the Armor of Fate. The other was the preservation of the Emperor's Sword, the blade given to Guilliman by the Master of Mankind himself, and which contained a fragment of his divine power. The third, well, we'll get to that here in a minute. Cawl's knowledge of genetics, gained from his soul merger with Sedine, along with the potent genetic material contained within the device known as the Sang Primus Portum, allowed Cawl to successfully complete the creation of the Primaris Space Marines and implement the Ultima Founding in about 999.m41, along with everything else that takes place in Warhammer 40k, using candidates kept in stasis deep beneath Mars from the time of the heresy until the 41st millennium. This was the culmination of 10 millennia of work intended to perfect the Emperor's creation. But over the course of his 10,000 Terran years of work, Cawl changed dramatically. Once a tech priest who had disdained the extensive cybernetic augmentations used by other tech adepts, Cawl slowly transformed his body until he was far more machine than man. He began to combine more psyches with his own cybernetic intelligence core, using the soul merging technology. Over the centuries, the Magos was slowly transformed into a gestalt being, who is now best described as a mesh of souls rather than a combination of minds. As the millennia passed, Cawl also began to lose much of his memory, as he forced to dump data from his intelligence core's limited storage capacity approximately every 500 standard years. Despite his own memory being stolen, and twice Cawl has also suffered mind wiping as well as periodic memory dumps, he remains a tech savant, a genius at the forefront of whatever field to which he turns his mind. Even amongst the ranks of the Adeptus Mechanicus, where artificial devices increase brain capacity and extend life beyond measure, such an accumulation of knowledge in multiple disciplines is exceedingly rare. Priesthood of Mars titles such beings as prime conduits of the Omnicide, or the Dominatus Dominus, Master of Masters. And of those few that still survive, Cawl is by far the most active. Cawl dedicates himself to a multiple of projects, his mind leaping from the construction of Mars' largest macro-mag cannon to perfecting his stasis field work, or to the endless experiments he conducts within his city-sized laboratories housed in Mars' extensive underground complexes. The majority of these obsessive undertakings are done in secret. Cawl has so many projects running simultaneously that he has added multiple independent consciousness to track them and employ furtive measures to keep them hidden from his many rivals. Deep in sealed vaults, countless experiments await Cawl's multifaceted servo eyes. Belisarius Cawl has invented dozens of weapons, uncovering scores of STC databases, and quests for knowledge across the galaxy, even once venturing into the Eye of Terror. Malfunctions, erasures, and jumbled trinkets have left vast holes in Cawl's ancient memories, but what remains fills vaulted halls the size of a battlecruiser. Cawl's curiosity has gone so far, in fact, that it borders on the heretical, including nothing less than an attempt to improve upon the Emperor's own work of creation.
You speak of the Primaris Space Marine.
Yes, I have. Now, for 10 standard millennia, the Magos Dominus had been working on the third task set for him by Primarch Rabute Guilliman, before he was mortally wounded by the demon Primarch Fulgur, which was a new legion of transhuman warriors. In the time after the Terran Crusade, though the Imperium was poised on the brink of annihilation at the hands of chaos, Cawl's task was at last completed. The Primaris Space Marines were a new generation of transhuman warriors, developed across the span of 10 standard millennia by Cawl on Mars. Cawl used the genetic template of the original Space Marines, created by the Emperor for his Great Crusade, as they started point for the development of the new Astartes. Primaris Space Marines are bigger, more physically powerful, and possess faster reaction time than the original Astartes counterparts. The Primaris Space Marines raised in this so-called Ultima Founding of 999.m41 are a new breed of hero for the darkest age of Imperium of Man's history. These new warriors were the next step in the evolution of the Emperor's Angels of Death, a timely reinforcement for the Imperium's armies as their enemies closed in for the kill in the wake of Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade, and the birth of the Great Rift dividing the Imperium in two. To aid them in battle, these gene-forged warriors were equipped with new arms and armor, forged on Mars itself at Cawl's direction, such as the Mark X power armor worn by various types of Primaris Space Marines, which combine the most effective elements of the ancestral Horus Heresy patterns of battle plate and the more recent developed in-power armor technology, the Mark II Cawl pattern bolt rifle, the archetypal firearm of the Adeptus Astartes, now re-engineered, recrafted, and perfected, the Mark III Belisarius pattern plasma incinerator, a new refined plasma gun, Redemptor dreadnoughts, the Overlord gunship, and repulsor grav tanks. At the dawn of the Indomitus Crusade, called by Guilliman to throw back the forces of chaos, these phenomenal new warriors joined the resurrected Lord Commander of the Imperium as he fought to liberate the scattered bastions of the Imperial space. Some Guilliman forged into new Space Marine chapters, whole brotherhoods composed only of these new transhuman warriors, all of which were originally called Grey Shields, which Yuksen will talk about in a couple of weeks. Others were offered to the existing Space Marine chapters. Many chapter masters have welcomed their Primaris brethren into their ranks, accepting the new reinforcements gladly. Others, though, view these new creations with suspicion and outright hostility, claiming that the Emperor's work should never have been meddled with by mere mortals. Though they are a step removed from their brothers, the Primaris Space Marines still bear the gene seed of their Primarchs, and some dissenting voices worry how the new type of warrior will react with the known genetic quirks and flaws of some of the more unusual chapters, such as the Blood Angels and the Space Wolves. The Primaris Space Marines offer new hope to a besieged Imperium, but the future remains a dark and uncertain place. During the Indomitus Crusade, Cawl was given free rein by Guilliman to unleash technological innovation to help the forces of the Imperium finally throw back the tides of chaos. Cawl had been authorized to utilize new technology and new configurations of ancient devices to refit Guilliman's flagship, Macrag's Honor. The ancient Magos had proven to be the Imperium's only source of technological innovation across the span of the Indomitus Crusade, creating several new vehicles and weapons to outfit the formidable legions of Primaris Space Marines and the original chapters of the Firstborn Adeptus Astartes. Jiminy Christmas. This is what we've come to, Yuksen. We have one dude in the entire Imperium that's actually trying to advance technology, because everybody else is so scared that it's heretical. That's just insane.
And this person happens to be kind of
almost heretical.
Almost heretical and kind of
insane?
Yeah.
Well, okay, maybe not insane. Schizophrenic, yes.
Yeah. That's not what I said. This is it. Who's he talking to? I don't
Nobody
know.
knows. Like I said
Mind
before,
you, he's actually having 5 conversations with himself inside his head.
Well, like I said before, anyways, he does have like this Necron that's in his lab that he plays chess with quite often, and people just kind of ignore it, which is pretty heretical. But anyways, well, especially for the Imperium. But anyways, now, during the first solar decade of the Indomitus Crusade, Cawl became increasingly detached from the wider galaxy. Instead of focusing on his quest to create and perfect the Primaris Space Marines and the Ultima Founding and deploy them wherever the Indomitus Crusade fleet Primaris went to reinforce existing Firstborn Space Marine chapters, or to establish new Primaris Space Marines only chapters. As part of that initiative, he sought to persuade Guilliman to allow him to utilize gene seed from the 9 forbidden genetic lines of the Traitor Legions and even the 2 long-lost 2nd and 11th Legions. Cawl claimed that there had been nothing wrong with these gene lines, as their Space Marines had operated as the Emperor had intended, and that adding their tactical diversity to the Imperium would greatly strengthen the new Primaris Marines. Cawl claimed that the flaw in the traitor legions and the lost legions had lain in their Primarchs, not their gene seed.
Apparently you didn't know anything about the defect of the Thousand Sons, huh?
Okay, so I would agree with you, yes. The Thousand Sons is probably the only one that I can think of that was really actually anyways genetically skewed into them. Them, and then the triumvirate ones anyways, which was the Alpha Legion, Space Wolves, and Salamanders.
Right.
But two of those are already anyways loyalists. And then the third one, as much digging as we've got into it anyways, it doesn't seem like they changed a whole lot with them. The only thing that we could find anyways was that they were significantly smaller than your average Space Marine, and they all looked like Alfarius.
No, actually, they were tall. They weren't.
Oh, no, yeah, you're right. No, Alfarius and Omegan were short for Primarch, but the Space Marines themselves were significantly larger. Right.
Taller.
Well, taller and bigger. I mean, they weren't just sticks.
No. But they weren't built like, for example, the Salamanders.
Yeah, they weren't built like the Salamander. Well, yeah, they weren't built like... They were still built like Space Marines. They weren't these skinny little guys. Or skinny tall guys. I mean, I wouldn't expect... Salamanders are just big.
Yeah.
These guys, anyways, were abnormally big for Space Marines. They weren't Thunder Warrior size. They weren't Custode size. They were just big enough, anyways. The way that I've always heard it described is, they were just big enough, anyways, that Alfarius and Omegon, anyways, could walk amongst them, being as short as they were, and they could walk through a crowd of them and disappear. Yeah. Probably the best way to describe it, right?
Yeah, and they weren't tall enough to be way out of the realm of Space Marines either, since they were able to infiltrate other chapters. Legions.
So as opposed to, like, for instance, Salamanders, anyways, it's like you said, anyways, are predominantly just large. They're quite large. The Alpha Legion, anyways, while they were large, they weren't the biggest Space Marines. That's probably the best way to describe it. But but other than Magnus, part of me kind of agrees with Cawl on this one, because none of the rest of them, anyways, really, honestly, it was their Primarchs that led them to chaos. It wasn't their genetics within and of itself.
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, of course, we don't know concerning the 2nd and 11th. They could have been completely messed up.
The 2nd and 11th, we don't even know, anyways, why they were exterminated. Which, yeah. But, anyways, this isn't a shocker, but Guilliman emphatically refused. And ordered the Archmagos not to progress any further with this research, even as he knew that Cawl would most likely take it upon himself to pursue such heretical lines of inquiry on his own. So it wouldn't shock me, anyways, if some of these Primaris Space Marines were, distant sons of Perd Rabo. or Angron. But anyways, Guilliman was no fool, for he knew that all Magi of the Adeptus Mechanicus hungered for knowledge. When they had it, they could rarely refrain from using it. On this particular matter, he did not trust Cawl one whit. Another thing that Guilliman and Cawl had butted heads on is Call's request on multiple occasions for Butte Guilliman to install him as the Fabricator General of Mars. As the Lord Commander of the Imperium and the Imperial Regent, Guilliman, like my brother said, replaced 5 of the High 12 of the Senatorium Imperialis upon assumption of the Regency of the Imperium and hundreds of lesser High Lords. Yet Guilliman has refused, in accordance with the tenets of the ancient Treaty of Mars, that the Primarch couldn't appoint his own Fabricator General, and the other Tech Priests would never accept it even if he could.
Well, who would want to put a schizophrenic in charge of Mars to begin with?
I think they're all kind of like that when you get that high up. You've been around that long. I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I've never been a fan of the Mechanicus, so all of them in my opinion anyways, are kind of all wackos. But
But he's a whole entire different wacko.
He's a different wacko.
At least he doesn't mesh with the other wackos, you see.
I will say anyways, I mean, you can plan him as much as you want about Cawl, go for it. There's a lot of things I don't like about Cawl, but the one thing that I do like about Cawl, as opposed to the rest of the Mechanicus, is the simple fact anyways that he's still striving to advance technology. He's, like we said, the one dude in the entire Imperium that is still trying to do that. I mean, the fact anyways, for the last 10,000 years that the new coffee machine hasn't been made because it's just heretical. It's just stupid. Sorry.
The fact he had to basically reinvent the wheel to begin with. The repulsor technology that actually has been around forever, that for some reason couldn't be copied. He's brought that back.
The whole thing, yeah. It's just sad. Okay, we'll get to that here in a second. I'm almost done with Cawl here. But Cawl has argued this many times, but to no avail. For a couple of reasons. Many of the tech priests of Mars hate Belisarius Cawl, viewing him as an arch heretic who disregarded all the machine god's commandments. Now, there are many more things about Cawl we could discuss, but they all take place after this point in history. So, I guess all of you folks that are listening, you're all caught up. Now, I know you really don't want to talk about Cawl, but what do you think of the start of the Crusade when, well, I guess, Cawl? Because he is kind of a focal point of what we talked about. Okay, so getting back to what you were saying about Cawl, like I said, the point in fact of what I just said anyways, is that Mars views him as a heretic.
Yeah.
Because he wants to advance technology.
Right.
The fact that he's reinstated anyways, like for instance for the White Scars, the what are they? The bikes. Flying bikes, what are they?
Yeah, he hasn't reinstated them. He basically reinvented the repulsor equipment used to be able to get jet bikes.
So, I mean, yeah, jet bikes, thank you. That was the word I was looking for. So it's just
had 3 repulsor tanks. They used to say.
Right. So, I mean, I know. Okay, I'll let you get up on your soapbox here in a second, but and like I said, there is a lot of things that I don't like about Cawl as well. Anyways, the one thing that I really, like I said before, that I do love is the fact that he is trying to advance technology. It's something that hasn't been done in 10,000 years for some weird reason. No one has decided, anyways. Hey, you know what? Why don't we build a better crane, or a better toaster? Or build the bigger mousetrap. No one's thought of that. Well, no, people have thought of that, and they've been burned at the stake by the ecclesiarchy because the ecclesiarchy, pardon my French, are assholes, and they hate technology for some dumb reason. And the Mechanicus has gone along with it, which is just, in and of itself, what's the word I'm looking for? Okay, stupid.
And, funnily enough, illogical. When the Mechanicus are all about logic.
So it literally takes, anyways, the worst kind of McGuffin to actually get the ball rolling on all this stuff. That's the thing, anyways, that just drives me nuts about it. But okay, go ahead. Tell me, anyways, why you hate Cawl.
Well, because he is the McGuffin of this particular time period. It's like, oh, poof, he shows up out of the middle of nowhere. Poof, he shows up with legions of space marines that are elite and above the rest. Oh,
my complaining, anyways, about Kaldor Drago being the McGuffin of the Grey Knights. Yeah, Belisarius Cawl is the McGuffin of the Imperium.
Yes, exactly. Of the Imperium.
Even more so than Guilliman. Well, Gilliman's more of a Mary Sue. But, yeah.
That, or the fact that it's like, yes, the Primaris Space Marines will get these guns. You guys, the normal ones, you can have your old crappy guns still. These are for the Primaris Space Marines.
These are the ones that I made.
For mine. Not you guys.
Why, Marines? I just... Which would be interesting is that because all the stuff is made by Belisarius Cawl, it wouldn't shock me in the least anyways if he'd actually had it for the primary Space Marines in Order 66.
Time has come. Execute Order 66.
Oh, that would be brilliant. Okay, okay. We can say a lot of bad things about Cawl, but Cawl all of a sudden goes, you know what? I think I'll rule the Imperium. And it just hits that button. After they pushed all of Chaos back, the Indomitus Crusade works out. Everybody's all hunky-dory and happy. And Belisarius Cawl goes, yes, now I rule the Imperium. Beep.
I and my other selves.
Yeah.
What? There's 15 of me, don't you know? It's like, why are you standing here?
We're starting a dictatored democracy. The hell is that? Well, I'm the dictator, but I have 15 brains inside of me, so we're a democracy. Okay. I don't think it's gonna work. Why not? Why? Why not? Because you're crazy. Oh, no, yeah, that might be it. Make it interesting. Okay. Okay, so other than Cawl, I think we talked enough about Cawl. And we will, by the way, anyways, continue to talk about Cawl because he is very important to the Indomitus Crusade. But
and we'll have to eventually, at some point, cover the Deptus Cacus, and of course, he'll have to be one of the characters to talk about.
we'll probably talk about him there too. Okay, the only guy I'm actually really looking forward to when we talk about the Mechanicus is Arkan Land. He is awesome. I'm calling
the
him
guy who created the Land Raider and
remade a monkey anyways, a robotic monkey from aeons past. And people said anyways, well, the tail was obviously anyway so it could hang on trees. And he said, of course not. It had a stinger on the back end of it, you fool. So he made it into a poisonous stinger. Anyways, I digress. So, okay, well, that's enough about Cawl. The start of this Indomitus Crusade anyways, first off, we kind of really quickly went over the aspect of the Battle of Lion's Gate.
yeah.
If you want to know more about that, we did talk about that more in depth anyways when we talked about the Custodes, because it is actually more of a Custodes battle. It's one kind of like the first things anyways the Custodes kind of did anyways in this millennia, getting back into being part of the Imperium, other than just we're sitting here and we're guarding this husk of an emperor, kind of thing.
Well, the reason why is because they were there, because they were guarding the husk of an emperor. That's why they were involved, you see.
So like I said, it is actually kind of an important battle, and we go into depth on it anyways. I believe it's on the legendary heroes of the Custodes. But other than that anyways, just the whole concept of Guilliman creating the Indomitus Crusade. What do you think of that?
I think it was a bold move.
Would you have done it differently? Would you have started a crusade, or would you have tried making like an iron shield or something like that?
I would want to make a more slow, progressive movement instead of a single, drastic one.
So more like an iron shield where you would take the guys of solar and you would start pushing them out anyways? Kind of like pushing a shield out? Alright.
Maybe have a couple of fleets to reach places that are in, immediate distress that would be key components to hold on to.
I think he kind of agreed with you. It was just more the aspect of I've only got this many troops. So instead of doing across the entire Imperium where the shield just kind of hardens and then it gets bigger, what he did was he kind of shrunk it down anyway so that he had a sizable force. And then it sounds like anyways he's using the Crusade as more like a shotgun blast. So he's got a place to aim it anyways, then it kind of spreads out in that direction in space.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I figure, anyways, it's kind of being described. Now, anyways, I mean, this is Guilliman's bread and butter, though. Logistics! Yes! We go to war, kind of thing. I mean, the Lion, anyways, it was all about tactics, figuring out, anyways, how to beat your enemy on the field. And then you had, Russ, anyways, who was the Emperor's execution. You had his sorcerer, and then you had Guilliman, logistics, the project manager, the chair force, so to speak, of the Imperium.
And
so
mind you, to reinforce this thought process, he literally built a logistics group just for this. 1,000 of them.
Okay, for all of you fans of Guilliman, I'm not saying, anyways, he's not a warrior. He definitely is, but this is really his bread and butter, is project management.
Yes.
It's the aspect, anyways, of figuring out, anyways, what niches need to be filled where, and then, and then resupplying it with logistics.
Yeah.
I think, quite frankly, I mean, it's been documented that Guilliman still writes his own reports. So, I mean, to him, anyways, the pen is definitely mightier than the sword. And I know a lot of people might not like that, but at the same time, anyways, if you're going to build an empire, I would rather have Guilliman than I would Lionel Johnson. Lionel Johnson's not going to lose a battle for you on the battlefield. He's not going to gain you an empire, though.
He's more of what I would consider as a general in comparison to a ruler.
Yeah. Johnson reminds me more. Okay, so Guilliman reminds me. We're going to, by the way, next week, anyways, we're going to be talking about Guilliman a lot. But Guilliman reminds me more of like a Augustus, Caesar, and then Lionel
Johnson.
Johnson.
Why? Maybe the laurel wreath that he wears and the.
But then the Lion probably reminds me more of like Hannibal Barca, who is the guy, anyways, that literally the Romans until you got to Scipio, anyways, could not beat. He was that general, and that's quite frankly, anyways, that's the line. You can't beat him, anyways, on a battle map. Let me put it this way: very few could beat him on a battle map. We probably could, but that's because we have, a million years, anyways, of battle tactics behind us, and we've got an infinite amount of warriors if we need them. But unfortunately, we've gone really far afield here, anyways. So, just real quick, anyways, for those, thank you guys for listening. We are kind of out of time here, but for those of you, anyways, that are listening, here's kind of the summary of what we're going to be doing for the next couple of months. So next week, like I said, anyways, we're going to be talking about Guilliman. Now, last time we talked about Guilliman, we actually covered it in two boxes, which was, we talked about Guilliman back in the day, and then the Codex Astarte, his baby. And this time, anyways,
which are more like guidelines, not rules. Mind you, some of the chapters go, "This is the rules."
Not if you're Leandros.
Guidelines.
Like I said, not if you're Leandros, then yes, no, they are emphatically rules that you have to follow all the time. And if not, we're going to ship you off to the Inquisition. Just ask Titus. But
in comparison to the Raptors, we're just like, we'll actually have camo. What? Yes. Who cares about the friggin' color of the helmet? We're gonna have camo.
Of course, if I recall right, the Raptors aren't Codex compliant chapter, are they?
Well, they technically are, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll have to look back into that. But like I said, next week, anyways, we're going to be talking about Guilliman. We will do a quick refresh at the very beginning of it, anyways, of like what he was like in the 30th millennium. But most of the stuff we're going to be talking about is actually what he's doing now, and how he has drastically changed from being the arrogant, prideful, pardon my French, asshole that he was, anyways, in the 31st millennium to actually kind of a real leader in the 41st. He's not old.
A-hole.
Yeah. It's interesting because both him, I will say this, both him and the Lion, anyways, just that whole, anyways, waking up and realizing how far everything has fallen and realizing, oh yeah, things can get significantly worse than the Horus Heresy, has made them grow up really fast. So we're going to be doing that next week. The week after that, anyways, we will be talking about the first phase of the Indomitus Crusade, as well as we'll be talking about the primary space marines. What makes them different, other than they're faster, they're stronger, they're smarter. And what legions actually, or what chapters were like, sweet, reinforcements, and other ones just like, you take your primary space marines and you shove them where the sun don't shine. Because there are a few chapters that did that too. The week after that, anyways, we're going to be talking about the conclusion of the Indomitus Crusade. And, okay, so here's the interesting part about the Indomitus Crusade. Technically, it's still going.
Yeah,
But not
technically.
it's shifted into a different name. And the next name, anyways, is something, anyways, that a lot of people will know, and that is the Plague Wars.
Right.
So we will be talking about the conclusion of the first phase of the Indomitus Crusade and how Nurgle really had a problem with that. and how Mortarion actually, anyways, decided, anyways, he gave Nurgle the middle finger and decided to do what he wanted to do. Now, the week after that, anyways, if we're gonna talk about Plague Wars, we have to talk about Mortarion. Now, for those of you, anyways, who are fans of the Death Guard, you know that with every chapter that we talk about, we always start with their Primarch. Don't worry, we will be talking about Mortarion again, anyways, when we talk about the Death Guard. It's just that this time, anyways, when we talk about him, we're going to be talking more about him, anyways, as the Primarch Demon that he is today. Yes. When we talk about him, the next time we talk about him, it's going to be very much more, anyways, of who he was during the 30th millennium. And we'll probably have to go over again that stupid thing with Keldor. Drago, anyways. Carve his name on his heart. You can go to hell. God, I hate that guy. Anyways. And then after that, the next three weeks, anyways, we're going to be talking about the Plague Wars. And all those books, anyways, if I recall right, anyways, have been scribed out by Guy Haley. But I think that kind of covers, anyways. And the last week, we're going to kind of talk about, anyways, what we think is going to be happening next. And what we've seen, anyways, Guilliman doing. So, did I miss anything? Is that what we're covering?
That's pretty much it, I think.
Cool deal. Well, there you go, folks. That's what we're going to be covering for the next couple months.
Fantastic. But for those of you who enjoyed our little show, could you please be so kind as to push that subscribe, like, or follow button? If you wish to help us expand our work on 40k lore, by all means, support us by joining our membership program on our YouTube channel, Tales of Asherak. Oh, and don't forget to purchase the Yoda Knights, sold wherever ebooks are sold, and Yoda Knights is spelled with a J.
Indeed. And also, anyways, if you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to hit the hype button. That's a new thing that YouTube is doing. We would really appreciate it because apparently it's like shooting the algorithm with adrenaline. But most importantly, have a great day. And until next time, this is Zeckthar
And Yuksen.
signing off.